Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Since there's been more information released on the next generation 86, the 2022 86 and BRZ, I thought I'd do a bit more of a comparison of the current generation 86 versus that new generation 86 which is about to be released. And now that Toyota has done their promotional day with automotive journalists, there's been a few reviews released on the cars, what their thoughts are, stuff like that. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to sort of, as an owner of a current generation 86, jump in and give my thoughts versus the two. In today's video, I'm going to go through each of the things that they've changed on the new 86 and things as well that they've kept the same as the current generation. If you are a current generation owner of an 86, you know, considering what they have changed, if it would be worth upgrading to, or if it's one of those things where, you know, like coilovers or something like that, you may already have upgraded that part on your current generation, making it equal or better than the next generation, depending on what your goals with the car are. So we'll start with the aesthetics, we'll go to suspension and handling, and then we'll talk about the new FA24 power plants that they've put in the car. So let's get straight into it. Let's start with the most subjective topic, so the aesthetics of the new 86. I reckon with the new 86, they've gone above and beyond with the look. I reckon overall, it's a really good looking brand new car. And I really like how in the next generation model, there's a lot more difference between the BRZ and the 86. The new BRZ has almost like gone for a baby Porsche kind of look or vibe, where the Toyota 86 has kept with that sort of like track, aggressive boy racer version of the car. The current generation BRZ and 86 sort of, while they did look different, like their front bars were different, stuff like that, they did really have similar levels of aggressiveness to them. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore the current generation 86 BRZ. I think they're one of the best looking sports coupes on the market today. I'm a bit biased, but I honestly do really like how they look versus their price point. It's awesome to see on the new 86 and BRZ as well that they've incorporated like fender vents and other sort of things into the design from factory. And I think because of that, it's a really good blank canvas to modify from aesthetically. But the fender vent, for example, like while it looks cool, it might be cool, it sort of does seem more like a gimmick. So it might become annoying more so with like dirt coming through the vent. But in conclusion, they've definitely updated what is a good design already, rather than straying too far from what they had before, which I think is awesome and I think is exactly what enthusiasts are wanted from the get-go. So with the aesthetics side of things out of the way, I want to talk about the new power plant, the FA24. But before I do that, I'm going to talk about the suspension quickly because they have announced some changes in the suspension of the new 86. So the next generation 86 definitely isn't a completely new chassis. It is just modernizing the current platform that they currently work off. In saying this though, there's definitely been some changes that Toyota have announced to their suspension, and Subaru has announced that their suspension is different to Toyota's as well. These suspension tuning differences happen sort of in every facelift and every next generation model that use the same platform. If you're looking at buying the new generation 86 as a daily driver where you might keep it a bit more stock, going for the newer model might be a good decision just because you'll get that factory compliant suspension with a better tuned, better handling shock. Whereas on the older model now, you could pick up a bargain and still have a really good handling factory car, but it might just not be as good or as compliant. From the reviews that people have released so far that have driven the car, they have said that the new suspension is really good and really intuitive to drive, but it isn't, you know, a radical difference from the current generation. I think the biggest difference with the new generation is the top of the range model is actually coming for the first time with a different set of tires, a grippier set of tires. I think they were Continentals. If you were looking at buying a car that is really good out of the box, I think going for the top of the range model which has the better tires versus the base model which will have the same tires as the outgoing model, the Prius tires, I think that's going to give you your biggest handling differences, getting that top of the range model. As for the other suspension components, it's going to be fairly identical to the current generation model, although slightly better tuned, you know, a bit more development into it. So it will be slightly better handling, slightly more compliant suspension. So if you are an 86 owner who is probably going to go past the limitations of the stock suspension and go for a coilover setup, and if you did want to save a few dollars, going for the current generation with a set of coilovers versus a brand new one and staying on stock suspension for whatever reason is going to be a better bet. Like these cars on coilovers is going to be better than the new generation on the factory shocks. Obviously, providing you're buying a good quality coilover. There's not going to be a radical difference in the suspension geometry or anything like that. Toyota and Subaru have both come out and said that the geometry and everything like that on the new 86 is fairly much identical to the outgoing model. So there isn't going to be a huge handling characteristic change between the two models. The last thing that I want to cover in this video, which is probably the single biggest difference between the current generation and the next generation, is that new FA24 platform. I definitely think going for the larger displacement motor in the new model is an awesome move from Subaru. However, there are definitely some things which I think will affect people who plan to modify the cars, which may make the FA20 a better engine overall. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the positives of the new engine, and then we'll go into some of the weaknesses that the new FA24 may have. The FA24 is a 2.4 litre now, brings the horsepower and factory torque up. From the statistics that Toyota have released, as well as a lot of the reviews that have been done on the new generation car, have said that the new 2.4 does address the torque dip issue that the current generation FA20 has. It still seems like it has a torque dip in its power band, but it's massively reduced. The new FA24 also, from videos that we've seen so far, seems to sound a lot better than the outgoing model. I don't know what it is with the extra displacement, but it definitely sounds like a more rev-happy four-cylinder. Has a much nicer tone to it than my personal preference on the current generation. I think overall the 2.4 litre is going to be awesome because it's going to provide all the benefits of the E85 tunes on the FA20, but with that factory fuel economy. Another thing that I really like about the FA24, which I was really worried about in the first instance, was them getting rid of port injection, but Toyota has confirmed that the FA24 does have direct end port injection. What this pretty much means is the cars are going to be super easy to tune for E85, again, same as the outgoing model, as well as being easily upgradable for people that want to go forced induction, you know, turbos or superchargers, stuff like that. For those of you who have experienced the difference in E85 tune makes to the current FA20, I think this FA24 is going to be that, but from the factory, with the factory fuel economy. This means when these cars are tuned for E85, they will be a properly quick car at that time. You know, they're not going to be a record-breaking straight line car by any means, but they're going to have a lot more torque and a lot more top-end power than the current generation did, which will make them a proper quick car in the right setting. My main criticism with the new FA24 is that they have gained this extra displacement by boring out the cylinders. They haven't changed like the stroke of the displacement, they've just made the cylinder wider, giving it that more displacement. This isn't inherently a bad thing to do to gain displacement. However, last time Subaru bored out a cylinder to gain extra displacement was with their EJ series engine. So they went from the EJ20, which was a 2 litre, to the EJ25, which was a 2.5 litre. And what they did in this instance is they bored the cylinder walls out to be thinner to gain that extra displacement. So it's the same as what they've now done with the FA24. What this caused, not a lot of factory issues from my knowledge, but when people went to go up the boost aftermarket or do other modifications that would put more strain on the motor, the cylinder walls would actually bend out because they didn't have enough material to stop them from deforming. This led to a whole world of people closing the deck on the engines, which led to their own issues. Some got resolved in time, some didn't. But effectively, like, they took a really strong, good motor that could make a lot of power in the aftermarket world and made it into something that needed all these other things. I don't think this will be a problem on factory cars or cars with the 85 tunes. I think it'll only be a problem, worst case scenario, cars that see a lot of track use on a tune, that see a lot of heat, or just your forced induction cars. The engine is yet to be released and we're yet to sort of see what the ceiling of their limit might be, or if this might even occur. They have only this time gone to 2.4 litres rather than the 2.5 litres they went on the EJ series. Maybe the decision to go only to a 2.4 was to retain a bit more material to keep the strength there. However, only time and aftermarket tuning will tell what this change will actually do long term. We might be in a situation where the FA20 is the better motor if you plan to boost it, and the FA24 is the better motor if you plan to stay naturally aspirated. I'm sure as soon as the motor's released, we're going to see HKS and a lot of other reputable brands doing their best to see what they can make out of these motors. But I'm so keen to see all the aftermarket tuning companies give the FA24 a go and see if we can have a car that makes 350 kilowatt fairly reliable, you know, with upgraded internals, with a lot more torque. Like, that would be so cool for this chassis. It'd really keep this chassis competitive in the era of newer modern cars. In conclusion, I do think the new generation 86 is going to be a faster car in a straight line and around a racetrack than the outgoing model, purely just because once good tunes start getting released, we're going to see over 200 rear wheel horsepower being a common thing, I reckon, on an E85 tune. For all the people that currently own 86s, whether they've got forced induction on them or not, if you are planning on going forced induction, I'd probably save your money, go a turbo kit on the current generation motor. Since the engine architecture is identical, apart from the bored out cylinder, you'll probably find the older generation FA20 is probably going to be more reliable for you long-term boosted. So save your money on going to a turbo kit. If you're looking at staying naturally aspirated, I'd probably go for the newer model. It's probably worth upgrading to the newer model purely just because getting 200 wheel horsepower out of these current 86s can be an expensive endeavour naturally aspirated. Whereas on these new models, I reckon they're going to do it real easily. I really wish that Toyota and Subaru would just bring out a turbo model already from factory. Like, this car is so amazing to drive with a turbo kit on it with the high compression pistons in it. The responsiveness of an NA car with the turbo boost of your 90s JDM feeling car is amazing. So as for myself, I don't see myself upgrading to the new generation 86 until I've been able to see what tuners are able to do out of the new FA24. I'm definitely interested in that new engine if it does prove to be a good, strong, reliable motor. I'd even love to put an FA24 in this and sort of have the best blend of this car and the torque of the new car. However, until I can see what the FA24s are capable of with a turbo strapped onto them. However, when we start talking about engine swaps and upgrading engines and everything like that, I honestly do think that the K24 motor might be a better option than the FA24 if I was to want to go and upgrade it. It's a proven platform with good aftermarket support and they are known to hold boost. So for me personally, I think it would be more cost effective for myself or for someone that wants to go forced induction to either buy the outgoing generation model, slap a turbo on it, or a built motor, or go K24 and then go turbo. It's probably more cost effective than going for the newer model and then turboing it, because you may end up with the same issues that you might have had with the FA, with weak rods, weak everything else. It's just food for thought, I guess, but I'm definitely going to be sticking with mine until I can see what that FA24 can do. But guys, that wraps it up for today. Thank you to you that have stayed till the end of this video. If you have, please like and subscribe. I'm so close to like 1,000 subscribers now, getting closer and closer with every video. So guys, if you could hit that subscribe button, I'd hugely appreciate it. And guys, plenty more videos to come on the BRZ, plenty more videos to come on the MX-5. And guys, hopefully I'll see you in the next video.